popped collar. How many iPad or tablets to get?
I guess just have 10 ready, like 10 in the room. I don't see any actually for TAC. A lot of them changed to say they're going to be virtual.
No problem.
After I sent the reminder.
I'll grab 10. That's okay.
Okay. And then at least you have them because I think you have 2 for the CAC that are coming in person.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Cassidy, are you all set?
Yes. You want to be the host now?
Yes, please.
Hey, Margie.
Hello.
I struggled last night to get the video in the PowerPoint,
Jesus.
but I worked with Robin this morning to download it and then just put it in on her computer.
Okay.
So she has a PowerPoint with it. Can we practice that before?
Yeah, do you want to do it right now?
Yeah, I don't know if she's joined yet.
So it's local on her desktop?
No, it's whatever she has on her S drive, but I'm not sure if it uploaded. I haven't
Okay.
checked for hers.
Okay, she's on. I don't know if she's ready to go yet though. She may need a couple more minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, if it was for the TAC presentation, I don't think it uploaded.
Yeah, it didn't for me. It hasn't for her yet. So that's why we just had her put it into the PowerPoint herself.
Okay, because the file still is really tiny.
It's small. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, here we go. So there's no sound right now.
Yeah, she'll have to share her sound. Oh, that's right. If you forget to do that in the meeting, Robin, at the top, you'll be able to pull down your menu and share sound. That way you don't have to exit and go back in. Okay. Andrew, you finished your presentation?
Yep.
Okay.
The Palm Beach Transportation Planning Agency, or TPA for short, plans, prioritizes, and funds transportation projects in Palm Beach County.
Margie, is it loud enough for you?
It's a safe,
Yes.
and connected
Is it lagging for you, Margie?
system.
It was, but now it seems to be getting better. I was trying to watch the sound when now it's lagging again.
Of all ages and abilities, including transit riders, bicyclists, and pedestrians. Let's hear about some of the Complete Streets projects across Palm Beach County and Florida.
I wonder if it'll lag if we stream it from YouTube.
That was running through our downtown.
You mind if we try to do that?
Lots of accident history. It was a natural blockade for pedestrians. They would
Robin,
stop and not want to cross a
can you exit this
highway with cars speeding.
And then would you mind seeing if we can bring it up on our YouTube channel? Would that be a concern for you? Cassie's going to send you a link. Yeah.
And then we'll test. Oh, I have to take a call.
That work. I think so. No. The last one? Which one? I don't think the last one wasn't smooth either, was it? Yeah, there's a lot of blue. There's a lot of blue. With the what? Oh, thank you. Anything that tans brown. She's like, no, your shoes are getting closer to like, oh, his? Yeah, Sahara sand. I'm just saying for like weather. Oh man. So I guess we don't really have a way of playing this thing, huh? Unless we, oh, Margie's got 1 second, she says. It's never good. I mean, I don't know if I've ever had a presentation that goes well. Yeah. We could compress the file even more.
Sorry, I thought it was a TAC member. It was for the board. So the YouTube video is not working?
So I've got the link and I'm trying to insert it, but it just, every time I right click in the box where it says enter address, I click on paste, but it just doesn't go.
So let's try, instead of entering it into the video, when it gets to that screen, Robin, are you able to like share a different screen?
Oh, God.
If not, maybe I can share that part of it. Let me see if it'll work. If I go to full screen, hold on. I don't even know if this will be like a better version, but we'll see. Oh no, I have to share my sound.
TPA for short.
Can you hear
Plans,
it?
prioritizes and funds transportation projects in Palm Beach County. The TPA's
That's
vision
Yeah, we
is
can
a
hear
safe,
it.
efficient, and
Dang.
connected multimodal transportation system. One of the ways to achieve this vision is through complete streets. Complete streets are designed for users
still
of
lagging?
all ages and abilities, including transit.
Dang it. All right. Unfortunately, I think that's what we have to live with, that it's gonna lag.
Yep, Connor, you can just say that, you know, it's available on our website, and then we'll have a lag. And then,
Okay.
so for now, we'll move forward with Robin just sharing the video through the PowerPoint.
Okay.
And
Yes.
if there's an issue, then
My daughter, my last one in my purse.
All right. I'm muting Robin. Sorry. Go ahead.
so that's it.
Okay.
And then, oh, I also want to say Jessica emailed me and said that she's having connection issues, like for how much upload she has, or I don't know, whatever. She's like lagging a little bit. So she was hoping that we can share her screen for her. And then she'll just tell you next slide.
That's fine.
Okay.
And then Cassidy, if you all are good over there, you can mute the microphones because otherwise I'll be able to hear everything you're saying.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The Palm Beach Transportation Planning Agency, or TPA for short, plans, prioritizes, and funds transportation projects in Palm Beach County. The TPA's vision is a safe, efficient, and connected multimodal transportation system. One of the ways to achieve this vision is through complete streets. Complete streets are designed for users of all ages and abilities, including transit riders, bicyclists, and pedestrians. Let's hear about some of the Complete Streets projects.
It looks fine on my end and it's not lagging. It did at the beginning, but then it stopped and it caught up.
You said it looked good for you?
Yes, at the beginning it started lagging, but then after like a little bit of seeing Melissa's face, it caught up and then it was fine.
Did you happen to see a black box in the screen?
I did, but I saw that. I figured it was for the live transcript option.
Yeah, it went away after a second, but we were just curious.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Okay.
I noticed it. So I don't know if there's a way that I can turn it off earlier. I didn't see it before I shared.
It's okay.
It should be once you turn it off, it shouldn't come up again.
Okay.
And that reminds me, Alyssa or whoever in the room, is it showing the transcript at the bottom of the screen right now in the
No, it
boardroom?
is not.
Okay,
We
so
only
it's
see your
hidden.
face.
Okay. Okie doke. Right, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I'll be back. Good morning, Madam Chair. This is Margie at the TPA. I hope you can hear me. We do have some members that are still joining both in person and virtually. So we're trying to just get them set up,
Thank you.
and then we should be able to get started shortly.
Microphone. Does he need a microphone? Sure.
Madam Chair, I believe we do have a quorum. So if you wanted to go ahead and get started.
Thank you. Good morning. I would like to call to order the September 1st, 2021 meeting of the TPA's Technical Advisory Committee. The Palm Beach TPA is conducting this meeting both in person and virtually using the Zoom webinar platform. Instruction to join the virtual meeting as well as contact information for assistance are provided in the published meeting agenda. Staff, please call the roll so that we can establish a quorum.
I want to remind in-person participants to unmute your microphones by pushing the button on the base prior to responding, and virtual participants to unmute your microphones. If you have any issues, my staff and I will be able to assist you. And then alternates, please state your name if you are attending on behalf of a TAC representative. Jim Bell.
Here.
Maria Tahara. Maria Tahara.
Here, I'm sorry.
Thank you. It's okay.
Trying to
Gary,
unmute.
it's okay. Gary Dunmeyer.
This is Amanda Radigan. I'm his alternate.
Richard Pereira.
Here.
Penny Wilson.
Here.
Thomas Driscoll.
Chen Chen Lan on behalf.
Jamie Brown.
Here.
Natalie Crowley.
Here.
Kim Glass Castro. Just want to make sure I don't have Kim or Aramis in my attendee list. Okay. Gary Sipek.
Will Hicks for Gary Sapek.
Brian Davis.
Present.
Levi McCullum.
Anna Bielowska for Levi McCollum.
Aaron Hoffman.
Here.
Terrence Bailey. Terrence Bailey.
Here. Can you hear
Thank
me?
you. Yes, I can. Thank you. Christopher Marsh.
Here.
Joyce Kai. Just making sure she's not in the list of attendees. Okay. Lorraine Cargill is excused. Kim Delaney.
Here.
Michael Odell.
Patrick Barthelemy on behalf of Michael Odell.
Alex Hansen.
Here.
Kevin Volberg.
Present.
John Crane.
Here.
Modus Amalturk.
Melissa Ackert on behalf of Mo.
And again, Kim Class Castro.
I, on behalf of Kim, Idamis Cabrera from Palm Springs.
Thank you. I just wanted to double check we didn't miss anybody else. And then Kara Ferris.
Here.
We have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Moving on, staff, are there any modifications to the agenda?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The next item is the motion to approve minutes for July 7th, 2021. Are there any changes to the minutes? If not, can I have a motion to adopt the minutes as presented?
I'll make the motion to adopt the minutes. This is Anna.
I second, this is Maria.
I have a motion by Anna and a second by Maria. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say
Aye.
nay.
Aye.
Nay pass. All right, next item. As a reminder, there are 3 ways to provide public comments for this meeting. Written comments may be submitted online at the website provided in the agenda. Verbal comments may be made by a virtual attendee using the raise hand feature in the Zoom platform. Verbal and written comments may be provided by an in-person attendee submitting a comment card available at the welcome table. Staff, have any general comments been received?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next item. Comments from the chair and members. I don't have any prepared comments at this time. At this time, I want to invite any TAC member comments on items not already on the agenda. For members participating remotely, please utilize the raise hand feature in the Zoom platform, and then remember to unmute your microphone once you are recognized. Margie, are there any hands raised?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to the TAC liaison report. I'd like to invite Connor to provide an update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. This is Connor Campobasso with the Palm Beach TPA. I'm here to provide the liaison report. The bicycle-friendly business designation is offered through the League of American Bicyclists and is based off the belief that bikes are good for business, employees, and the community. Applications for the program are due by October 5th. For more information, you can visit bikeleague.org/BFA. The TPA is offering a virtual public workshop to provide input on transportation issues and opportunities along Okeechobee Boulevard and State Road 7. The workshop will provide the public an opportunity to learn more about the study and provide feedback on how we can plan for a more safe, efficient, and connected multimodal transportation corridor. For more information, please visit palmbeachtpa.org/Okie. The Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinator Board, or LCB, is seeking new members. The LCB focuses on the needs of Palm Beach County's transportation disadvantaged population, specifically older adults, persons with disabilities, persons of low income, and children at risk. The LCB is currently seeking representatives for children at risk and for the elderly. For more information, contact Kelsey Peterson at kpeterson@palmbeachtpa.org. The Federal Highway Administration is hosting a safety-based webinar series every Wednesday in September. The series will highlight 7 safety initiatives and share how they can save lives. To register, visit palmbeachtpa.org/everydaycounts. The next TPA governing board meeting will be held on September 16th at 9 a.m., both in person and virtually. To view the agenda packet and meeting details, visit palmbeachtpa.org/board. FDOT is hosting the Transplex Safety Web Series every Friday in October. The series will focus on the safe system approach to eliminating fatalities and serious injuries on our roadways. To view the full calendar of sessions and to register, visit fdot.gov/planning/transplex.
The next round of pedestrian and bicycle high visibility enforcement funding became available on July 1. For information or to apply for the funding, visit alerttodayflorida.com/HVE. And the last item I have here today is the TPA's Complete Streets video, which showcases roadways in Palm Beach County that are designed to enable safe access for all users, including pedestrians, bicyclists, motorists, and transit riders. And we will be playing that video for you all right now.
The Palm Beach Transportation Planning Agency, or TPA for short, plans, prioritizes, and funds transportation projects in Palm Beach County. The TPA's vision is a safe, efficient, and connected multimodal transportation system. One of the ways to achieve this vision is through Complete Streets. Complete Streets are designed for users of all ages and abilities, including transit riders, bicyclists, and pedestrians. Let's hear about some of the Complete Streets projects across Palm Beach County and Florida.
US 1, a federal highway, which was a highway that was running through our downtown, high speeds, lots of accident history. It was a natural blockade for pedestrians. They would stop and not want to cross a 4-lane highway with cars speeding by.
This is Okeechobee Boulevard. It is designed for fast-moving vehicles to go in and out of the city. And that's not necessarily what the values of the city has, or the citizen of the city has.
This is an old town. We have been established for 70 years, and this road, US 1, has been there for a lot longer than that. We didn't have decorative lighting. We had very narrow sidewalks up there.
What is the root cause of why our streets are so unsafe? And it comes down to how we design it. And we design it for cars and we design it for speed.
When I hear from friends and relatives who live elsewhere in the country or in the state, and they see the activities that we're doing to create an environment that is welcoming for everyone, for people in vehicles, for pedestrians, and for cyclists, they want to move here. And we want to make sure that everyone feels safe and welcome here.
We were notified by the Florida Department of Transportation that they were going to come in and simply repave a 6-lane stretch of US Highway 1. And we thought we would take advantage of that time to be able to look at something that would be bicycle friendly, pedestrian friendly. The concern was it's different. It's changing. I've always been able to have 6 lanes on this highway. It wasn't so much that it was a bad idea, it just wasn't something they expected or wanted. And that was until we got this project really done.
Well, it was about 6 years ago when the city of Del Reach reached out to the school and let us know that this was an improvement that they were considering. We spoke about it with our SAC members, our community stakeholders, who also had concerns about the safety of students coming and going. Everyone was 100% in favor of it.
We had an engineering firm come in and take out a lane with little barriers that didn't look so good for about a year to study the traffic impact. And what we learned was we were able to slow speeds by between 6 and 10 miles an hour, depending where you were on the corridor. The accident history in the study area went down 50%, which is extremely significant. And at the intersection of US 1 and Atlantic Avenue, we saw a 75% reduction in traffic accidents.
The great thing about living around here, at least on Cumberland, is that when I do go out for a bike ride, I am safe. I have what some people might call armadillos along the road that separate the bike lane from the car lane. It really does add a layer of protection for the biker.
We said, you know, it's not good business to have people driving 65 miles an hour past your main street. We have to slow it down, which is good for the economy. Once the narrowing came in and the bike lanes were added and the landscaping was added, people start to see what it could be. So the potential takes over. And what we did is we turned a highway into a neighborhood.
There are less parents driving because the kids that live closer are now able to walk. So it's offloaded the number of cars that are coming and going in the afternoon.
So by interconnecting the roadways for bicyclists and vehicles and pedestrians, it gives all residents the ability to have access to resources in the neighborhoods, such as medical resources, job opportunities, educational opportunities, and that's what we want.
I truly believe that if we work together and that we all know what the end goal is, that we can get there.
As we've seen, Complete Streets can help create a safe, efficient, and connected multimodal transportation system. The TPA looks forward to working with local municipalities to implement Complete Streets projects across Palm Beach County. To learn more, go to palmbeachtpa.org/complete streets.
All right, that is the end of my liaison report. I'll pass it back over to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Connor. Staff, are there any public comments on this item?
No, Madam Chair.
Do any committee members have any comments or questions on the liaison report?
I do have Melissa with her hand raised.
Melissa?
Hi. I was just curious. It seemed like the video was focused mostly on the communities on the east side of the county. Should it maybe talk about the rest of the county?
Good morning, Melissa. This is Andrew, the Palm Beach TPA. You're correct. We don't have a lot of, I guess the ones you see on the screen there, a lot of them were lane repurposings or narrowings to provide those facilities. We haven't had any larger examples out west I can think of for the Complete Streets concepts to really broadcast those. If you have any examples that we could be doing, we'd love to incorporate those as well.
I mean, I don't have any ideas either. I know that the Complete Streets, they seem to have a different philosophy based on, you know, the classification of the area. So, you know, out west is probably more rural transitional. So it would look different. And I'm just curious what that would actually look like.
Yes, you are correct. There are those context classifications that we could look for good successes out there as well to make it more well-rounded. That's a good point. Thank you.
Any further comments, Margie? Raised hands?
I do not see any hands raised, and I do not have any public comment. Oh, I'm sorry. Natalie raised her hand.
Natalie?
Yeah, I just wanted to compliment the video. I thought it was really well done. There was a lot of time and thought and consideration and the footage, and I really appreciate that, the staff putting such a nice visual presentation on that. So kudos to the TPA staff.
Thank you. I don't have any cards raised in-house, so we're going to move on to the next item, or action items. The first item is the motion to recommend adoption of amendment number 1 to the TPA's fiscal year 2026 Transportation Improvement Plan. I'd like to invite Jason Price, TPA TIP Coordinator, to present this item.
Good morning, everyone. Today, I'm going to present to you the first amendment to the Transportation Improvement Program for fiscal year 2022 to 2026. And as a reminder to the group, this is an action item that will require a vote at the end of the presentation and discussion. So to start, I'll describe what the roll forward is. And this is typically the first amendment or change to the Transportation Improvement Program, which is a request by FDOT to take funds from fiscal year 2021 and advance them to 2022. And this roll forward of funds from the previous TIP in 21 into fiscal year 22 of the current TIP is something that is required to keep the projects consistent between the FDOT work program and the transportation improvement program. So this is a collection of projects, a total of 67 projects totaling approximately $39 million in funds from the previous tip in 2021 that'll be advanced forward into this tip into the current year, fiscal year 2022. And so with every amendment, there are specific requirements or conditions that require an amendment. And those requirements are when a project is added or deleted from the transportation improvement program, as well as if there's a cost increase of 20% or $2 million, and there's a change in scope. And as always with an amendment, the only projects that are impacted by the amendment are the projects listed within the amendment, and no other projects within the transportation improvement program are affected. So it's only the projects listed within the amendment itself. So the next few slides just show you a snapshot of the projects that have the largest amount of funds being rolled forward with over about $500,000. There's about a dozen projects. And what you see here on the far right side, there's 3 columns. The first one is the current tip and what's currently programmed for these particular projects, the amount being rolled forward from the previous tip into these particular projects, and then the new amount that will be reflected after this amendment is approved. So, and then these projects are in descending order from the largest amount of funds being rolled forward. So from this slide, you can see there's about $1,700,000 for the top project, descending to about $1,400,000. And then there's a last few projects here from about $850,000 all the way down to $623,000. So there's about 12. Those are the highest projects with the most amount being rolled forward. And that concludes the presentation. So with that, I'll ask for a motion to recommend adoption of amendment number 1. And if there's any questions, I can take them at this time.
Thank you, Jason. Staff, are there any public comments on this item?
No, Madam Chair, and I do have a hand raised. I have Kevin with his hand raised.
Okay, Kevin?
Yeah, good morning. I just wanted to clarify. So these are going to roll forward to fiscal 22. Does that mean that some of these may end up rolling forward again into 23 next year under similar circumstances?
I'm not sure. I don't know how to answer. I mean, the funds only roll forward for the current year. So as the projects progress, it would only be the previous year that's left behind. I imagine it could happen if a phase straddles yet a third year, the 2023 year. So if a phase takes a couple of years to complete, then yes, the funds would roll forward for another year. But I would assume most of the funds being rolled forward are the funds to be used in that fiscal year.
Okay, otherwise it would require another amendment to roll forward whatever funds similar to what's going on here.
There's John Crane.
Yes, thank you. Kevin, when we program the projects in the work program and the TIP, we program we try to fully fund them. So it may not always be possible to spend all that money in the current fiscal year, and that's why it rolls forward. But we do try to make sure that the project phase is fully funded. So we will program, the entire construction phase in that year if we can. And so there is a possibility, like he said, that if we don't spend it all this fiscal year, we'll come back next year with another roll forward amendment. We come forward every year with a roll forward amendment of all funding that we weren't able to uncover in the current fiscal or the previous fiscal year.
Thank you,
Okay,
John.
thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to go back. I need a motion to recommend adoption of Amendment 1 to the TPA's fiscal year 22 through 26 tip, and then I will open the floor to discussion.
Motion to adopt. This is Jim Bell.
Second.
Okay, do we have any comments from the members?
I do have Alex with his hand raised.
Okay, Alex.
Hi, I had a question on one of the projects that is listed there. I believe is the fourth project in the table that we were provided. It is identified as Palm Beach County SEC 5307 Capitol North Facility Expansion, and then it's listed as a transit improvement project. I was just curious what that project entails, and it's almost $1.2 million. So I just wanted some clarification.
Hi, Alex. Could you repeat the FM number and the title of the project?
It is the fourth project from your list. So it is the FM is 4347341, and the project name is Palm Beach County SEC 5307 Capitol North Facility Expansion, and then it's identified as a transit improvement, and it is for $1,189,000. I was just curious what that is.
Let's see.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry. I do have Anna with her hand raised. I'm not sure if she raised her hand regarding this project or.
Okay. Do you have an answer to Alex's question?
Is Anna with Palm Tran?
Anna, would you like to answer this question?
Yes, if I may be able to. Sorry, what was that?
No, go ahead.
All right, so currently we have been discussing doing North facility upgrades. So this would include a lot of upgrades that we've been discussing, including oil wells and tank systems, shop upgrades, our fuel island upgrades, fuel management system software, upgrading the electrical system capacity. So these are some of the items we've been discussing for the North facility expansion.
And so, Alex, I worked directly with Palm Tran and coordinated with them to find out about specific projects to see if the funds were either completely spent or if there was remaining funds to carry forward. And they did have funds to carry forward for that particular project. So we went ahead and showed that as part of the roll forward. It's not actively tracked this specifically by FDOT, but we do the due diligence of reaching out to Palm Trans to find out the exact amounts and itemize it by project. And so that's why.
So this is for the Palm Trans facility located in West Palm Beach and Electronics Way. Is that those improvements for that facility?
Anna, can you confirm that? I would say yes.
That's our North County facility here in West Palm Beach.
Thank you.
Okay. Margie, do we have any other hands raised?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any cards in-house. I have a motion by Jim Bell, seconded by Natalie Crowley. We are going to do this vote by roll call. Margie, please call the roll.
Okay, before I call the roll, I just want to remind the members present in person to unmute by pushing the button on your base, and those that are present virtually to unmute your microphones. And then the motion on the floor is to recommend adoption of amendment number 1 to the TPA's fiscal year 22 to 26 tip as presented. Jim Bell?
Yes.
Maria Tahara?
Yes.
Amanda Radigan? Amanda?
Yes.
Thank you. Richard Pereira,
Yes.
Kenny Wilson,
Yes.
Chang Jen Lam,
Yes.
Jamie Brown,
Yes.
Natalie Crowley,
Yes.
Aramis Cabrera,
Yes.
Will Hicks,
Yes.
Brian Davis,
Yes.
Anna Bulaska,
Yes.
Aaron Hoffman,
Yes.
Terrence Bailey, Terrence,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes.
Christopher Marsh,
Yes.
Joyce Kai,
Yes.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
thank you. Lorraine Cargill will be marked as absent. Kim Delaney,
Yes.
Patrick Bartholomew,
Yes.
Alex Hansen,
Yes.
Kevin Volber,
Yes.
Melissa Ackhart,
Yes.
Kara Ferris.
Yes.
It passes unanimously, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Move on to the next item. It's a motion to recommend adoption of the Vision Zero Action Plan update. I'd like to invite Jessica Jocelyn, TPA consultant from Kittleson and Associates, to present this item.
Yes, thank you. Can you all hear me?
We can hear you here.
Great. Excellent. Well, thank you for having me here today to present this very, very important document that the TPA has been working on for a majority of this year of 2021. So if you move ahead to the next slide. I just want to remind everyone what Vision Zero is, if anyone is not familiar and newer to the group. This is actually a initiative that started in 1997 with Sweden, and it is a movement to eliminate all traffic fatalities and severe injuries. Sweden has been successful in reducing their fatalities and severe injuries by 50%. So we're hoping to follow in their footsteps. In the country, there are 49 cities that have a Vision Zero, and also the state of Florida, where of course we reside, has a Target Zero plan that they're working on. So lots of progress occurring to try to eliminate fatalities and severe injuries. And I'm just honored to be working with you all in part of this movement. Next slide. So the Vision Zero Action Plan, I just want to remind, because sometimes we get stuck in the day-to-day of what we do as technicians and technical experts. This is about names. It's, yes, the numbers are important and tracking the data, but it's really about saving human lives. On this slide are several folks that unfortunately lost their life because of crashes on our system, and we are dedicated, our group and your committee and your board, to try to eliminate this happening in the future. Next slide. So we have been working on this for quite some time, your agency, starting in 2016 with your Complete Streets policy, moving forward from there, taking that policy into design in 2017 with your design guidelines that were created for Complete Streets. In 2018, the adoption of zero fatalities occurred. In 2019, as a reminder, you all prepared your first Vision Zero Action Plan. Again, I applaud your group, because not all MPOs take on this effort, and I just think it's very important, given your role in the region, that you have done this, and there's been much progress made since you've all been getting involved. And then, of course, now here today presenting the action plan update to see where we've come from 2019 and new actions that we want to introduce to the group. Next slide. So a reminder, there's lots that go into Vision Zero. So here are the 9 key principles that Vision Zero follows, kind of best practices. starting at the top from political commitment all the way to data-driven and transparency. One element I wanted to highlight as well, not going through all of these principles, but is the topic of equity. It's just so important that our facilities are safe for everyone, no matter what makeup you are, gender, where you're located. It's just so important that everything we do creates safe environments for everyone. Next slide. So getting into some of the statistics, reminder that Palm Beach County is quite large. There are 2,000 square miles that we're assessing in this Vision Zero, and a population approaching 1.5 million people. Of course, you all know you're continuing to grow over time, so those numbers will be increasing as we look into the future. Unfortunately, we did see the numbers increase in fatalities. 2020 was the highest year reported looking over the past 5 years. As you can see, it's not a consistent uptick over the past 5 years. There are dips down and up. COVID, of course, we speculate played a role in the increase as speeds were found to increase during COVID as there was less congestion on the roads. In total, we have lost 887 people in the past 5 years, and also 5,395 severe injuries. So again, we really, really want to use this action plan to try to reduce those numbers. Also, as an important statistic, 25% of the residents of Palm Beach County are 65 and older. So this is something that we really need to be keeping in mind as we look forward and how to create safer systems, again, for all users. And different components may need to be thought of as we look at different ages of who's traveling Palm Beach County. Next slide. So in terms of putting everything on a map from the data standpoint, we developed a high injury network. So actually 34% of the deaths occurring in Palm Beach County are happening on 5% of the miles of roadway. So we are trying to really hone in and zoom into the facilities that are experiencing the most fatalities and severe injuries. Looking at the data, the most at risk are the older adults that I was previously mentioning. Of course, pedestrian and cyclists, because they're more vulnerable and have more exposure on our facilities. And also the traditionally underserved communities are most at risk. In terms of critical crash factors we saw in the 5 years of data, Fridays and weekends are popping up, and also nighttime from 7 to 10 p.m. Now, the map on the left, you can see there are darker roads highlighted, and that entails all of the high injury network. But here we just wanted to note the top three in no particular order: Glades Road, Boynton Beach Boulevard, and Okeechobee Boulevard. Although we have specifics that we will be moving forward with in a database, working with TPA staff to see if there are any solutions we can identify. Vision Zero really is meant to be high level and not get into the weeds, just trying to create a movement and momentum to continue identifying ways to improve at a big picture level. But those details and specific streets are available for Andrew and his team at the TPA, again, to do further analysis and get more into the details. Next slide. So also it's important to know, outside of this Vision Zero, your strategic plan. So there's a really strong alignment that was made quite intentionally between the strategic plan and the Vision Zero. So a few reminders on your strategic plan that's also advancing towards zero fatalities and severe injuries. The first is this update itself. So that was great to see us be able to make movement there. You've also prepared an interactive comment map on your website where anyone can go in and notify where there may be safety issues on the network. Great success in your pedestrian and bicycle safety field reviews. Kudos to you all. I think that is really a best practices that others can take and recreate in their own communities and continue with that. Also, your project scoring has very intentionally included safety components. So that's your local initiatives program, your transportation alternatives program, and also updating the state road modification program. An application process for safety is being prepared through FDOT District 4. So we're making progress and adding on that side of the equation. And then also you're considering and continuing to modify your TPA committees to ensure that you have safety expertise and representation in groups such as this. The next slide. So outside of the strategic plan, again, aligning the Vision Zero with that, we identified 12 additional actions. There are 3 categories these 12 actions fall under. The first being policy. So here under policy, 5 of the 12 actions reside, and I just want to briefly walk through them. And of course, at the end, we'll take any questions and get your feedback. So the first is to produce a Vision Zero annual report and proactively seek feedback and research the latest Vision Zero best practices. So again, continuing to use this document to hold us accountable and have momentum. Include safety changes in your legislation and policy positions. Identify target speeds for high crash corridors based on context classification and safety. Some of you might be wondering, what is target speed? You're actually going to be hearing about that later on today. So it's a really exciting initiative to help bring speeds down and make our facilities safer from the Department of Transportation. We also have to collaborate with partners to create a consistent process for displaying the safety analysis included in your TIP projects. So again, making sure safety is just always a priority and it's clear and transparent how that's being processed and analyzed in all of your projects. And then also work with the school district of Palm Beach County to require safe walking, biking, and driving curriculum. So starting at the younger ages, that's an excellent action that we're already in discussions with the school board. So that's the policy action summary of actions. And if you go to the next slide, we have the category of funding actions. And here we have 2 that you see. The first is work with signal maintaining agencies to make signalized intersection crossings more pedestrian friendly. And the second of the 2 is evaluate safety aspects of TPA funded projects 1 year after construction completion. So it's so important we saw in best practices to really assess the progress we're making, looking at before and after information, so that we can use that to continue to make the best decisions possible moving forward with future transportation projects. Next slide, and last category is culture. And here we have another 5 actions under this last category of culture. The first, provide reviews of fatal pedestrian and bicycle crash reports, including observations and potential actions. Collaborate with roadway owners to maintain a detailed data inventory to provide more effective analysis of complete streets opportunities. Implement a Vision Zero media and public education campaign. We got some great feedback from you all, a few of you we spoke to, and partners that that'll be very helpful so we can have a consistent message that we can all be sharing. Also host an annual Vision Zero workshop for local communities and agencies. The TPA out of this plan really wants to ensure that the materials and information we're providing you all at the local jurisdictions is helpful and valuable, so that together we can all work on this. It's not a either or, we need to partner. So we're hoping those workshops will be beneficial as they have been in the past. And then participate in Vision Zero safety events, as well as other local transportation safety events, and encourage events to be held in traditionally underserved communities. As I was saying before in the data, they are the most at risk. So we wanted to be very intentional in recognizing that events we want to attend in those areas. So those are the 12 actions that we came up with for this Vision Zero update. If you go to the next slide, I will open it up for any questions or feedback that you have on those actions. We will be expecting everyone to work together towards them. So your feedback is certainly desired and welcome.
Thank you, Jessica. Staff, are there any public comments on this item?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. I will need a motion to recommend adoption of the Vision Zero Action Plan update, and then I will open the floor to discussion.
I make a motion to adopt.
Second, this is Kim Delaney.
This was Maria.
Thank you, Maria. Okay, staff, do we have any raised hands?
Yes, we do, Madam Chair. So I'll remind you as well, but I have Alex, Melissa, Kim, Brian, and CJ. Changden.
Okay, I'll start with Alex.
First I want to commend everybody involved in the development of this plan. I think it's a great document, a great effort that hopefully would lead us to the desired goal. I do have a few comments. One has to do with basically just a labeling of a certain section of the document towards the beginning, and I'm kind of scrolling here. I guess page 9 of the document, page 26 of the package, there's this table with all this data about includes fatal and severe injury crashes by mode. You have pedestrian, bicycles, motorcycles, cars, and so on. And there's a lot of other data, which is quite useful. I was a little bit confused as to for which period this data was. And I had to go up a couple of pages in order to determine that that data corresponded to that 2016-2020 period. So just from a labeling standpoint, I would suggest having somewhere in this page the fact that this specific data that you have there corresponds to the 2016-2020 period. It is not clear at first. So that is just a suggested change from a labeling standpoint. Then, Jessica, you mentioned in one of your earlier slides that you guys had identified 3 roads, I guess, as probably one of the worst roads from a safety standpoint. And I believe it was Okeechobee Boulevard, which I completely agree, Boynton Beach Boulevard, and then Glades Road, which I agree are all roads that are not very safe. However, when you look at one of the other documents that we are going to be discussing at today's meeting, which is the data on bicycle and pedestrian injuries and fatalities, and I understand this is for the first part of 2021, I was looking at the map that is included in that document, and I noticed that there's a lot of fatalities and severe injuries, also military trail, different sections of military trail. It's probably even the worst of all the roads that are identified. This is page 75 of the packet that we have. So I'm a little bit surprised that military trail was not identified as one of the most dangerous roads in your document. I understand it's part of the overall network of, 50, 60 roads, but it's not one of the top 3 that you identified. I was a little curious because, again, if you look at this other map, it's clear that military trail, at least in 2021, had a lot of fatalities, bicycle, pedestrian. So I just want to point that out. And my final comment has to do with one of the action items in the document. This is action item 1.5. And again, I'm scrolling up and down here, which deals with working with the school district of Palm Beach County, which I completely agree, but the specific recommendation is to work with the school district of Palm Beach County to require annual safe walking and biking curriculum in elementary and middle schools, and then driving education curriculum in high schools. My suggestion will be to still include walking and biking curriculum for high schools. High schoolers walk and bike, So I would still include that. And if somebody's pointing out, well, that will be covered elementary and middle schools for the first few years of this program, those high schoolers would not have received any biking and walking curriculum because when they were in elementary or middle school, that was not covered. So my policy suggestion would be to include walking and biking education in the curriculum for high schools. May have a different focus than the one for elementary and middle schools, but I would still include it. So I would suggest making that policy action modification. But again, I think the plan is a great effort. So I commend everybody.
Thank you, Alex. I appreciate all the feedback, the positive and the suggestions. We will look into Military Trail. I don't have the data right in front of me, but we'll get back to you on where that fell without and compare it to the other ped bike work you noted. And also I'll work with the team on the school district component. That is a very good observation that we don't want to imply no one walks or bikes post elementary and middle school. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Alex. Next is Melissa.
Hi, I just had a few questions also. The roadways that were identified as being, on the high crash network are also happen to be the ones with the highest volume. So, one thing we need to consider is crash rate, because we might be missing roadways that have a higher crash rate, but because they have less volume, the frequency is lower. But, when you compare it to Okeechobee Boulevard and maybe a 2-lane road elsewhere has a higher amount of crashes because the volume's lower, that might be where we would want to also do this. So I think that, we need to look at both frequency and crash rate, just so we're not missing these other ones that, are out there. The other thing is the idea of target speeds, that is something to look at, but I think we also need to be considerate of, what the speeding did contribute. I think I saw in there that it was 26% of the crashes were tied to speeding. I don't know if that means that the vehicles were already above the speed limit. So lowering the speed limit, those people are still going to do that. So it may be an enforcement issue. So I don't know if that was really what was intended there, but then it also mentions in the action plan that the only partner for speed limits is FDOT, whereas the county has jurisdiction in certain areas, and so does Boca Raton, and the cities have jurisdiction over speed limits on their roads. So we would want to make sure that that's not just FDOT being the partner there. There was also a recommendation for some of the pedestrian enhancements, LPI and hot response. And we would like to also have you consider flashing yellow arrow. That actually is very effective in, protecting pedestrians when they're crossing the crosswalks, because it allows for them to have a protected phase when in certain other situations they wouldn't. So that's something also we'd like to be a recommendation that's part of the toolkit. The last thing is, one thing I think I've read a lot in these police reports is, when there is a crash involved, it could be alcohol related. In some cases, you really can't figure out why, a pedestrian might have been in the middle of the road at a certain time or a certain place. It's hard to figure it out. But I do think mental health does play a factor in it. And for this to be, I think, more holistic, we might want to have some sort of component to it, maybe not now, but maybe in the future, that looks at, how does mental health play into some of these fatalities and these injuries, so that way, if there is an area where we're seeing that, there's a population or something like that, we can maybe work with the right agencies and come up with programs that help those people to help us reduce our injuries and our fatalities. I think there was one more thing I wanted to ask, but I can't remember now. So, but yeah, in a nutshell, I mean, I think this is a good plan. We want to work with you as well on this plan, and Oh yeah, now I remember what it was. There was the I think it was in culture. The culture component had to do with these quarterly reports for crash histories, and it mentioned that there's no partners there at all. So we would like to be a partner in this, and maybe the DOT might also, because they have a safety program, and the county we also have our own crash database, and we do our own safety analysis. So we would like to be considered a partner on that. So that was it.
Thank you, Melissa. It's fantastic just to hear the theme of partnership in your feedback. Really appreciate that. Just one quick question on the flashing yellow arrow. That is something that the county supports and is looking to implement, and we can follow up with you on that.
Yes, it's actually now as part of our standard. So whenever there is a permissive phase, it's automatically considered, if not put in. So that's what we've done recently.
Okay, great. Yes, and I can follow up with you offline as well as some of the others, but I think it was very straightforward. Appreciate that feedback. And on the speeding issue, I think the intent is more just speeding creates fatal and severe injuries. Where there's speed, that tends to be an issue. So I think the overall theme was just recognizing that and acknowledging that. But I appreciate, we'll add you to the partnership and how to think through that and address it. And like you said, it does vary what's causing these conditions and how we solve them. So it's complicated, but we're hopeful that through our partnerships, we can make some progress there. And I think the target speed presentation you're going to hear from FDOT will be helpful for that topic as well.
Okay, thank you. Next comment is Kim.
Good morning. So first, excellent job, Jess, and to the TPA in assembling a Vision Zero approach that I think is more meaningful and understandable. When we first had the Vision Zero conversations at the TAC and elsewhere, there's a lot of pushback about the idea of establishing an unattainable goal. And Nick presented just on Friday a refined definition of Vision Zero that I hadn't heard described as clearly. And Jessica, you captured that, which is the idea of eliminating fatal and serious accidents, not all accidents, or crashes rather. And so very good job of capturing that. The policy, recommended policy 2.2 looks to measure projects at 1 year. And my suggestion would be 1 and 5 years. I don't think a 1 year experience of an improvement captures behavior as meaningfully. And I was triggered by Jeff Perlman's comments in the video prior, where he was able to rattle off very quickly the changed behavior and results in key intersections. I think it'll better arm elected officials and the public in describing the benefits of these improvements. Thanks.
Thank you,
Great
Kim.
catch, Kim. Thank you.
I think,
Chair.
Margie, you said the next was Brian?
Yes.
Okay, Brian?
Thank you. One, I'm amazed at this and how it's progressed and sort of echo what's been said before. As many of you know, I'm a land use guy, and I always try and figure out how land use intersects with things, particularly transportation, because that's what's sitting in front of all the uses, and in some cases beside and behind. And so I've got kind of an interesting, sort of perspective on this. Jessica, I was really glad that you were mentioning equity, because these roads are both facilities, but they're part of everyday life. And so this notion of equity, I find very interesting as it's tied through. As far as the roads, one of the things that struck me when I looked at the high injury network was, what percentage of the roads are collector arterial? That seemed to be a fundamental issue. And then tied to that is, what are the level of service? I mean, I think you may find there's an additional correlation, that when, you get to really bad level of service, you're not having as many issues, or it may be related to off peak that you are having issues because of the way the road's designed. And I ask that simply because it kind of helps us understand how to begin to implement in land use some of these concepts about how do we then take this. And I'm looking at how do you take a Vision Zero concept, even though the county as an entity hasn't adopted what I understand the TPA has. But looking forward, and somewhat along what Melissa had said about mental health and so forth, I'm trying to see, is there a correlation between population density, urban form, and the demographics, is to kind of look to that next level to have a better understanding, of maybe why you've got a high injury network. Is it beyond just the road itself, but are there contributing factors beyond that? And I think that's something going forward as we begin to refine this that we have to consider, is that it's not just what happens in the road, it's not just the behaviors, it's not just the things that are contained in an accident report, but you may have very poor pedestrian connectivity, or you have a lot of land uses that are sort of out of balance. You may have a high residential area, but a high commercial area not far, but they're poorly connected. And that desire to sort of, play Frogger and get across a large arterial may begin to influence why you're seeing some of the pedestrian issues. And so that's not necessarily a driver behavior, that's just poor physical form. And so those things, I think, begin longer term, if you can begin to correlate all those things, can help inform land use decisions, other improvements, beyond sort of just the purview of roadway facility. And maybe enable us to think outside of the box. But I also wanted to, in tying it to collector arterial, is I think there's a real correlation of form when I look at the map. Yes, you got sections of federal in portions of the county, but an overall network or the high injury network, a lot of those are suburban in form. They're not rural. And so in some extent, you're kind of getting a perfect storm of how this agenda laid out. We got to see a lot of different things and sort of helps tie it together. And then in the last point I wanted to make was just in some of the statistics, and this is really how it correlates to the LRTP, is that some of these are more vision goals of the LRTP, but it might be helpful to have some back data out of that, like, the 15% automobile split, to other facilities. What do we have now? We don't have that. One, is that attainable, but also, some of these things to construct new things. How much do we have? How close are we to complete streets? And so I know you're just repeating some of those statements, but it may be useful going forward as far as a measurable, goal. If that's the 2030 goal, are we likely going to get from 5.5 to 15%? And are we even making, incremental headway on that? And so those are all things I think that go, because I'm not sure that a mode split will really help things like a Vision Zero plan. So. But just wanted to offer that. I think it's great. I'd like to see this going forward, because as someone who sits on the implementation side and land use, these are things that can begin to help us, or are there things that, as we look at redevelopment of areas, how do they, fill in and contribute to making other improvements that are sort of beyond the scope of land use? So, thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Brian. That's all great feedback. And the first thing I think of is I want to have a follow-up meeting with you and Andrew and talk about the land use side. And again, I'm hearing this great theme of partnering with the county. I think this is wonderful. All very good comments. Thoughtful. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Next is CJ.
Well, thank you. One of my questions has been asked by Melissa, which is I think the using the crash rate is the key to identify the high crashes locations. Just for the corridor or for the area wide, the appropriate traffic exposure, as you know, is like a daily VMT. And a second question I have, the suggestion I have is maybe our goes over again. my next comment would be in addition to the corridor or the street, that identify the hot location intersections is also critical. Since I have impression that before from doing analysis, seems the majority of the crashes occur at the intersection, and county-wise, I remember maybe 50% or 60% of the crashes occur at the signalized intersections. So I would like to see your analysis include that the high crash location at the signalized intersection as well. Thank you. Again, using crash rate.
Thank you, CJ. We did include the top intersections in the high injury network. I left that out of my presentation. Apologies for that. In the data, 39% of the county's crashes over the 5 years occurred at intersections. But we will take your comments back to the drawing board and see how we can better incorporate that.
Okay, Margie, do we have any other raised hands?
I have Jim Bell.
Jim?
Yes. I was just trying to gel some of the data that's presented here. Just wonder if it's totally consistent. On page 24 of the packet or page 7 of the slide presentation, there's that little up and down kind of graphic that you show traffic fatalities in Palm Beach County are increasing. And it says for 2020, 185 traffic fatalities. Then if you go to page 22, which is the deaths and severe injuries in Palm Beach County, which is also 2020, I guess for the fatal crashes, it has it at 767. That seems, I know that's only, I mean, I know that's encompassing both deaths and severe injuries, but it still seems really high from 185 to 767. I just was just wondering if to make sure that the data is correct, that's all.
Thank you, Jim. I will see if that fell through a quality control crack, and hopefully it didn't, and it is the correct number, but I appreciate you identifying that potentially as a incorrect piece of information.
Thank you, Jim. We have John has his card raised.
And Madam Chair, I also have Joyce with her hand raised.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Great presentation, Jocelyn. I had one question and a couple comments. One of the questions, you had a slide on most at risk, and you identified, the elderly and a couple other classes as the most at risk. And I was wondering if that was based on the data, or that's just the classes that are most at risk based on, traditional history.
Yes, it's based on both data and just our knowledge of the Vision Zero's work we do and the communities and ranges impacted. So it's a blend of both.
Okay. So it wasn't necessarily out of the 127 deaths, those three categories made up the majority. I mean, we didn't base it on that necessarily.
Data did play into it. I will go back and get specifics and make sure that that's clear in our documentation, because I know we did do a blend. So I'll go back and make sure it's clear what was data, what was just based on our just overall understanding.
Thank you. And the reason I was asking is we've mentioned the crash rate as being important, and we're looking at 2020 data and we're showing one data point and it's going up, and there's a certain amount of alarm about that, as there should be. But there's also, I heard numerous stories during the lockdown and COVID environment where you couldn't buy a bicycle because bicycles were just bought up. Everybody was walking and bicycling. They were taking this opportunity, right? So the exposure rate of bicycles and pedestrians are, certainly a piece of the equation. While the high speed of the lower traffic may contribute to that, I wouldn't want us to say or think that we're doing a bad job. Maybe if we've quadrupled or septupled the number of pedestrians and bicyclists, and we only had one increase in the number of injury or fatality, maybe we're doing a good job. So I don't know if you've done any research either associated with this project or other projects around the country, I think that would be definitely worth looking into, at least as we use 2020 data, correct? And so, and then the last comment I had was related to the culture action. There was an action item for media and public outreach, and we pointed to the map that was developed, and I think there was one other aspect. And I was just curious, isn't there more public outreach that we're doing as an MPO and TPA other than just posting a map up there? So in terms of an outcome, I think we had other outcomes as well that might be more appropriate to list.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because the public involvement group and the new public relations director, Melissa, have been doing a lot of outreach. So the comment map, I think, was specifically just a strategic plan element. But yes, moving forward, there's going to be a comprehensive package that Melissa and her team will be putting together. We're really excited to see what type of movement we can make there. So we'll make sure that that's clear.
Thank you, John. Joyce?
Hi, good morning, Jessica. Thank you. That's a great presentation. And we are very glad that you also work with the school district, trying to provide the safe walking, biking, driving for schools. And we look forward to working with you more. And I have two questions. One is related to the crash rate. And the other folks already brought it up. I just want to know if you by any chance have the data or analysis of the crash rate of the street near the schools, Palm Beach County public schools. If you do, so we like to, have them. Of course, also to working on trying to, provide a more safety route to, for kids. My second question is, does this Vision Zero also help steer fundings to infrastructure programs, such as providing sidewalk or some safety device, or providing a education workshop, etc. So those are my two questions.
Okay, so for the schools, we didn't create a specific subset of data around the schools, but I know it came up throughout the project. So I'm going to go back and see what type of information we do have there. I know we kind of just kept it at a high level, acknowledging that we need safety around the schools and to be working with the school board on that. And then, of course, any roadway agencies around the schools. But I'll go back and see what I can find there and provide to you. And then in terms of infrastructure projects, we didn't, in the Vision Zero, come up with a list of projects per se, like you would for an LRTP or a TIP. But I do know it's the desire that funding goes towards creating ped bike infrastructure ultimately to create safe facilities. But there isn't a specific list of infrastructure right now in the Vision Zero. That's going to come from other products the TPA creates. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Yes, thank you.
And thank you, Joyce. Appreciate your input.
Thank you.
Okay, and Margie, do we have any other hands raised?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, I have no one in-house. Hearing no further discussion, I have a motion by Maria Tejera and a second by Kim Delaney. We are going to do this vote by roll call. Margie, please call the roll.
One question, sorry.
Alex, Madam Chair.
Yeah, my only question is, several of us had a few comments or suggestions for some, I guess, tweaks or things to look more into in the document. I'm personally fully supportive of this. I just want to make sure by voting yes to adopt the document, there may still be the possibility for staff and the consulting team to make some of those adjustments, right? That will be included in the motion.
That was not included in the motion, but
Alex, I'm asking Andrew to confirm, but to my understanding, all of your comments would be included into the item, even though we're not saying, I will say as amendments are requested instead of as presented for the motion on the floor.
I am okay amending the option to add, to include comments made during the presentation.
Then I'll accept that as the second.
Thank you. So Alex, then the motion on the floor is to recommend adoption of the Vision Zero Action Plan update with the suggested revisions. So if you're ready for the roll call, Madam Chair, I just want to remind attendees to please unmute your microphones. So Jim Bell,
Yes.
Maria Sahara,
Yes.
Amanda Radigan,
Yes.
Richard Pereira,
Yes.
Kenny Wilson,
Yes.
Chang Jen Land,
Yes.
Jamie Brown,
Yes.
Natalie Crowley,
Yes.
Aramis Cabrera,
Yes.
Will Hicks,
Yes.
Brian Davis,
Yes.
Anna Bulowska,
Yes.
Aaron Hoffman,
Yes.
Terrence Bailey,
Yes.
Christopher Marsh,
Yes.
Joyce Kai,
Yes.
Lorraine Cargill is absent, Kim Delaney,
Yes.
Patrick Bartholomew,
Yes.
Alex Hansen,
Yes.
Kevin Volberg,
Yes.
Melissa Ackhart,
Yes.
Kara Ferris.
Yes,
It passes unanimously, Madam Chair.
thank you very much. Moving on to informational items. The first is an update to FDOT design manual. Excuse me. I'd like to invite Dwayne Carver, FDOT Complete Streets Program Manager, to present this item.
And Dwayne, I have that you're muted on your end. Oh, I think we have you.
Thank you.
unmuted.
Sorry, I was trying to press my button and it kept moving away from my cursor. Okay, thank you. Good morning. I'm Dwayne Carver with the FDOT Roadway Design Office and Central Office up in Tallahassee this morning. And I'll be presenting with Scott Peterson, who is your person there in District 4. And we were asked to come and give you just a real brief update on a new design bulletin that has been released by FDOT. This is a bulletin that updates our FDOT design manual, which is kind of the instruction book for how you design the state roadway system. And I'll tell you a little bit about what it does. And then Scott is going to talk more specifically about how it will fit into what you're doing in District 4. I'm kind of going to give you kind of the 30,000 foot statewide level view. All right. This is brought to you by the Vital Few safety effort that Secretary Tebow has instituted, and it includes bike ped safety, intersection safety, and lane departure safety. Those are all areas that DOT needs to work on. And what we found was that managing our speeds on our roadways to a safe level is actually something that can improve all of these different aspects of safety. So we released Roadway Design Bulletin 2108. That's the 8th bulletin that we did in 2021. We do a bulletin in the middle of the year when there's something that we think is important enough to go ahead and update it in our design manual without waiting for the next cycle. We do a new design manual every year, but if we think it's important enough mid-year, we'll go ahead and get that out. So that's what our design bulletin is doing. So what this one does, it recognizes that we need something called a target speed on our roadways. And this is a speed that you set. It's not the design speed, which is actually the speed that you build the road to. It's not the speed limit, which is what you see on the black and white sign posted out there. Those things are all set by different processes, and it's pretty complicated how you set and reset those. So when you start talking about changing them, it can be difficult to do. A target speed is something that we all agree on that the road needs to be operating at the end of the day. It's maybe separate from all those things. In fact, it quite often is on the state roadway system. And what this recognizes in our bulletin is that it requires an interdisciplinary effort to select this target speed. It really is something that's beyond the scope of just design engineer or a traffic operations engineer. So we have to then set a target speed any place that we also need a design speed. We sometimes do projects where we don't have to set a design speed. In that case, we don't have to worry about a target speed. But if it is a project that has a design speed associated with it, we have to set a target speed first, then we go and work on the design speed. It does provide some limited guidance in that bulletin as to how exactly you would select that target speed. And by limited, I mean, it basically tells you if you're on one end of the context classification scheme, you go higher, and on the other end, you go lower. It's pretty broad, and it directs you to our context classification guide. If you look on the graphic that I'm showing here, this table, here's our context classifications, which I'm hoping you all are familiar with. And here's our range of design speeds. And you can see that in some of these, there's quite a wide range of speeds. And so how do you know where to fall within that range? That's what the target speed is helping you try to determine. So we have a little bit of that in the bulletin and some more in the context classification guide. And the bulletin also recognizes that the district at the end of the day has to make the final decision on what that design speed must be for the project. And they will be the ones to make the call on that. So this guidance from central office is there for statewide use, but we don't know the specifics of your particular project. That's for the district to try to determine. So there's nothing in here that's going to force the district's hand in any particular way. It just asks them to go ahead and go through this process and make that determination. I wanted to show you, some folks seem to think that, you kind of pull a lever and then on the other side, a target speed pops out. It's a little more complicated than that. And so you can think about projects in terms of, some projects have a planning phase. If they go through PD&E, target speed is something that would be very easy to work out in PD&E as you're doing the work on that. A lot of projects that we do don't have a planning phase. If it's a 3R project, it really doesn't have much planning probably that went into it. And so we have to do a context classification review anyway. And so in that case, then we will start out by, at this first look at the project, we'll start determining what that context classification target speed might be. And I wanted you to see the folks who are involved in that kind of decision making. It would include your complete streets coordinator, your bike ped coordinator, the district design engineer, district traffic operations engineer, the district safety administrator, and the TPO, MPO liaison. And that's just the recommended folks that we had in here. The district may have a different way of doing this and may have other folks involved in that. District 4 has got a long history of doing, multimodal scoping checklist with their projects. So I know they already have a lot of processes on the ground, and Scott will tell you more about that. So that's just basically people looking at it and saying what might be a good design speed here or a good target speed without knowing much else about the project except what the local plans are and maybe some safety information. And so we start with that. That gives us one idea what the target speed might be. Then we go in and we have to actually set the design controls. And that brings some more folks into it. So my ISD manager might be involved with that as well to set the design controls. That's when we start setting the target speed and the design speed. And then a lot of times it'll go from there into a scoping and budgeting process. And so that's where we say, well, we'd like to have a target speed of a certain amount. You go in and talk about what that might look like if we started trying to design something like that. And then you see how much money you have. Can you actually afford to build the thing that you want to build? And how close can we get to that target speed with the money that we have? And so there's a lot of kind of horse trading that goes on there. And you may find that the design speed goes down. Maybe the target speed goes up a little bit, and they may have to meet in the middle. It may be if you have a really drastic change in target speed, you can't do it all on one project. So maybe you have to break it up and phase it, or maybe you can find more money than you thought you had, or find additional funding from somewhere else and make those changes happen. So there's a lot that goes into that conversation. From there, then it has to go to the work program and make sure there is actually money to do that, and they can find a way to fund that. If you have these folks involved in the previous step, that helps a lot with that effort. And then it goes into design. So you've decided what it's going to be, and then the designers get a hold of it. They know what target speed and design speed they're working toward, and then they can pull the criteria out of the FDM that will help them get to that. And then finally, you go out and build the thing. And then once it's built, we come back and look at it and say, well, how well did we do? We thought we were going to get down to a certain speed. Were we able to meet that speed or not? And if you weren't, then you can do another project to go back and look at it later. Or you may decide we'll just have to wait till the next time we come through, depending on the scope of the scale of the problem that we're dealing with here. Right. So, just to kind of summarize, the context classification will tell you the range of allowable design speeds, and then the target speeds is helping you determine what design speed for your specific project you should be having. And FDM 202, which is chapter 202 of the FDM, has some tools that you can use to try to achieve this target speed. So let's say, for instance, you decide, well, if we added a roundabout at these two intersections, then we turn them into roundabouts. That would really help us manage the speed. Or if we did some added some street trees, or we narrowed some lanes, or did a road diet, or something like this, that could get us there. Those things all cost money. So the FDM tells you which things you can do. There's no money in the FDM, so you didn't have to figure out, can I afford to do those things? Where would I get the money for that? And how do we program those things to make it happen? So you look at all those things to see what we can do. Then we set a final target speed and a design speed based on the balance of all these things, the context, what we need on the project, what resources we have, that will affect that final target speed. And then the districts ought to make the final decision on how to do that. And the local government actually has an important part to play in this. At the very beginning of it, when we're first talking about what that target speed should be, and we do the context classification analysis and all those things, we're looking at things like, what's going on in that roadway today? And really importantly, and I heard one of your folks mention this earlier about the land use connection for that. What's happening with the land use along that corridor? Is it going to be the same in the future as it is today? Or is it going to be different? Is it going to be more urban or maybe less urban in the future? That'll help us understand what might need to happen with the target speed. So to the extent that that you have clear vision, clear plans, you have some clear coding perhaps that lets us have a lot of certainty about what a corridor might be in the future, that helps us set that target speed. All right, and now I'm going to pass it over to Scott, and if you can take the controls from me and give them over to Scott, I'll let Scott tell you more about how District 4 thinks they're going to take this bulletin and work with it.
Yeah, hi, this is Scott Peterson, District 4, design and roadway design engineer. Sorry about that. So repeating a little bit about what Dwayne said, but getting into a little more detail. Obviously, this is something that needs to be decided early in the process because it could affect the scope. If a target speed, if we're trying to lower the road, lower the speed on a road, maybe it involves moving curbs, maybe it involves just restriping lanes, maybe it involves, tabled intersections or raised pedestrian crosswalks. So we want to get those programmed and funded correctly from the beginning. So this will be done very early, for projects that the TPA is just prioritizing right now. Now, since this bulletin went into effect more or less immediately, we have a whole slew of projects that are already begun design, that are already past the scoping phase. So we are going to have the design teams take a look at the factors, make recommendations to the target speed team, and we will be implementing it even for projects that are past, the programming phase. As Dwayne said, it will be multidisciplinary. We want to make sure we get the scope right. And the other thing I'll say about this process is this is relatively new to all of us. So our process may evolve a little bit as we get some experience here. So I don't have all the answers here today exactly as to how District 4 is going to implement this, but we will be implementing it. Am I in control of the screen? I don't think I am, Dwayne. Can we go to the next slide? There we go. Oh. Okay, so what factors, what I want to impress upon everyone is I don't think we're going to be lowering speeds just because slower is safer. We're not, the goal here is not just to reduce the speed on every state road. The goal is to give us a tool in our toolbox to assign the appropriate speed to the appropriate road. In the past, locals would approach us and would sometimes request a lower speed limit, and it could be an arduous process, and we were strictly beholden to whatever the 85th percentile speed out there was. Well, now the 85th percentile speed has been reduced in importance to just one of the factors. It is not the sole factor that must be abided by. We want to make the right engineering decision, and that's going to be based on a lot of things, such as context class. Local input will certainly be an important aspect of that, public support, land uses, some of the things I have listed here. So not every road will be getting a reduced speed, but hopefully we're making the correct decision on every road and every project. And next slide. And so if the decision is made, in fact, to reduce the speed, well, the next question is, well, what are you going to do about it? How are we going to achieve that? And listed here is just a very small number of the bullet points, which are techniques which can help reduce speed. You can find a much more complete list at the references I give there on the right. And the other point I want to impress here is this doesn't mean every project in DOT's work program now has an unlimited scope to reduce speed, as Dwayne mentioned. If we have a triple R project and lane narrowing through restriping is something that's agreed upon, yes, certainly that can be accommodated. Mid-block crosswalks, you know, probably can be accommodated. But if what it will take for the ultimate target speed is reconstruction of the road to, you know, for a lane elimination and to move the curbs in and reconstruction of the median and redoing the entire drainage system, that may not be able to be accomplished. So we do have to respect what the scope was of the project that is programmed. But we will try to work within those scopes to be as flexible as we can to achieve these target speeds. And I believe that is my last slide.
All right, thanks, Scott. That is all the presentation that we have. I'll be glad to take any questions you all might have.
Thank you. Margie, are there any public comments on this item?
No, Madam Chair.
Do we have any hands raised from committee members for comments?
I have Melissa with her hand raised.
Okay, Melissa.
I was trying to understand how the target speed was determined from that flow chart, but it went over my head. So could you explain that again?
The flow chart is explaining how, really it's more about how the target speed gets worked out on the project itself. There's a lot of ways you could pick a target speed. One of the things we know is if, for instance, if you know that you have safety issues on a corridor, if you know there's specific problems you're trying to solve there, if you have a demonstrated speed problem on that corridor, a lot of ways you can take to set that. What I was trying to show with the flow chart is just that your complete streets coordinator, for instance, might have a pretty good idea what a target speed would be. But once you actually get into the project, what we quite often find is that what we can do on the project just may not get us all the way that we'd like to go. So let's give you an example. If you're trying to drop a speed by 5 miles an hour, maybe 10 miles an hour, there's quite a few tools that can help you do that. And so what Scott was kind of alluding to is that if we can narrow some lanes, maybe add some mid-block crossings, do some other treatments in there, there's a lot of stuff that we can do that's fairly low impact in terms of cost, and we can do those things. But if you're trying to drop a speed by 20 miles an hour, if you have a road that was designed to operate at 45 miles an hour, it's probably going to operate at 45 miles an hour. And if you want it to go lower than that, it's basically kind of ripping it out and reconstructing it completely. At the very least, moving curbs and drainage and a lot of things that Scott was talking about. So that long process that I was trying to show you is that just to show you there's a lot of sausage making that has to go into what that target speed is going to be, because we're trying to keep expectations, reasonable about this thing. And we don't want someone to come in and say, well, we think the target speed should be X, and just expect that it would be X at the end of the project. There's a lot of stuff that has to go in there. It may end up being X plus a couple factors based on what we can actually do. And I think Scott was trying to explain that as well. Hope that was helpful.
But Melissa, to answer your question, maybe what we plan to do here in the district is, I don't have a flow chart or a process by exactly how this decision will be made. We're going to have a conversation. For projects that are still being programmed, we have a well-developed scoping team up in planning. They should be reaching out to the locals and all the multidisciplinary units and, documenting that in a decision, which will be presented to the department for discussion. For projects that are already begun, we've asked the design team to compile this information, and, local input is definitely going to be part of that. We're willing to have conversations about it. We're just going to get a group of people together and try to make the best decision we can on a project by project basis. I don't have anything more formalized documented than that right now.
That's really what the chart was saying. So Scott just said it better than I did.
Thank you.
Okay, Margie, do we have any other hands raised?
I have Kevin, Brian, and Changja.
Kevin?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you, Dwayne and Scott. I think this sounds like a really promising venture that we're heading into. And ultimately, the decision is going to be made via some FDOT sort of committee, I guess. I take it, as far as what the ultimate target speed may be for in a programmed phase situation. So some of the potential implementations, the lane reductions and traffic calmings and things like that. Does that mean that the trend is going to be more towards embracing those types of implementations in the future, you know, different than maybe what is currently being considered on some of the roads? And is the target speed going to be then the speed limit on the road ultimately? So those are just a couple things I was wondering about. If you could elaborate a little bit, I'd appreciate it.
So the department has a lane repurposing program, and we are, you know, we do several of those every year where we're repurposing lanes to different things, and then those come through. And quite often when those come through now, we are seeing target speeds. Even before the advent of this bulletin, we were seeing folks come in and say, hey, we want to change the speed of this road to be this, and we're going to reset the design speed to be that same speed. And so we're, you know, that's how we'll do it. And so we are seeing those changes taking place. A lot of that is led also by local effort. So, you know, our most successful lane repurposing projects that I've seen have usually been where it had good local support. A lot of times it originates with the local government, and they come in and say, hey, we'd like to do something different with this roadway. What can we do? And over the years, we've gotten better, I think, at determining what we can do with those roadways. And as the department's gotten more comfortable with it, we've kind of, you know, gone further and further out on things that we can do with those. So I think you will see more of that happening. I think this target speed bulletin will help us do those things, at least from a statewide perspective. Scott, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, well, the question also mentioned calming, not just lane repurposing.
Right.
And I think the answer is, the question was, will we be more supportive of this? Will we see more of this? I think the answer is yes. There's a big push in the department. There's always been a push, but there's a renewed focus on safety of all modes, bikes, peds. And so I think in the right spot, you'll find maybe less resistance is not the right word, but perhaps less bureaucratic hoops to jump through to get this implemented in the right spot. And the other part of your question was about posted speeds. Yes, target speed and design speed should have an influence on posted speed. So if we have a road designed at 45 miles an hour, posted at 45 miles an hour, and we all decide that 35 really is the target, we're going to see what can we do to reduce speeds. Can we narrow lanes? Can we put in some of these other features? And then can we lower the posted speed? It should have an influence on the posted speed. If it has no influence on the posted speed, we're probably not implementing enough strategies to reduce the speeds.
Okay, and you said that this is going to be implemented immediately?
Well, okay, let me clarify that. Yes, it will be implemented immediately on all projects that are prior to about 30% plans. So if we're pretty far along on the development process, I mean, yeah, we can talk to the design team, maybe some things can be, but it will be implemented on all projects that are in the early stages of design.
I believe that was all of Kevin's comments, Madam Chair. So I have Brian and Shane Jen.
Okay, Brian.
Just his perspective, and you know, I think this is great. I think you all in your flow chart offered the proof of something I'd heard more than 2 decades ago. A federal highway official had said that highway design was too important to be left to the highway engineers, and I think you all gave the proof of it, if you will. the long way to the short answer. But I also, just as a perspective, I mean, probably 10, 15 years ago, I was having a conversation at a CNU conference with Liz Platter-Zyberg, and she asked, who did we need to work on next? And I said it was the engineers. And I'm not taking credit for this. It was one of those, I thought it was sort of a strange conversation that, you know, who do they need to work on next? And it was like every time we'd have a project that was more urban or a design oriented problem, we always had problems with the engineers. And then I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, Dwayne, I think it was you actually at a CNU thing, you actually got up and gave the announcement of the FDOT context thing. And to me, it was this incredible revelation that it was like, wait, they somehow penetrated the high castle and context was being discussed. And I remember working for actually the Georgia Department of Transportation, and like the mantra back then, 20 plus years ago, was context sensitive design, but it hadn't penetrated the engineers and the design profession that were working on roadway projects. And then I was like, and my point is here we are, you're now actually looking at how to implement this. And I want to applaud the sort of the integration of these facilities rather than, sort of how the old interstate highway system was planned. They just sort of came through and, they were Robert Moses type projects where they just went in and totally destroyed, whole areas in the name of flowing traffic, and this notion of needing to sort of reintegrate these things. I mean, the role of roadways are critical in what makes cities and society and civilization possible as we understand it. But there's always a better job that can be done. And so I just wanted to say that I'm impressed that things like, design speeds and so forth are now going to contemplate and consider and react to, things beyond what happens within the right of way. So just acknowledging, I know if you all are sort of on at the point, but for somebody who's been in this for a while, I can see the change and it is appreciated, and we should, understand what it is, that this is really a different direction or a new day, if you will, in roadway design. So thank you for bringing that forward and to see that it's not just a document that's out on a shelf, but it's really being implemented and informing the process. So thank you.
Thank you for those comments. What I'm finding is that the districts are open to these ideas. You've got folks in District 4 that are no strangers to speed management, and they've been doing a lot of these things for a long time. Mark Plass and Scott and others just really jump on these things. What we're doing is opening the door, I think, for them to do a lot of things they have wanted to do anyway, and maybe the rules wouldn't let them as much as we should have, and so we're trying to loosen that up. Another thing I want to point out is that for the most part, the state roads, you're talking about one or two roads, we're the main arterials, but there's so much of the transportation network that is not our road. And there's a limit to what we can do on our road. And to the extent that we can continue to have good local network that's not on our road, that is outside our right of way, that's going to be huge. This morning, there were traffic jams on all the roads the main roads I wanted to take back in from dropping off my son. But I was able to look at the map and figure out I could, cut through some other streets and get there because we had a good network where I live. So that's really going to be important. And the more local network there is, the more flexibility we have to do things on the state roadway system. If there's no network, then we end up having to carry all the traffic, and when we have to carry all the traffic, we're really limited to what we can do. Scott cannot really design a great road if we tell him he's got to build 6 lanes or more. There's only so much, that a human being can do with that kind of a road. So thanks.
Thank you. CJ?
Oh, thank you. I need to admit that this terminology is so confusing to me. Before we have design speed, process speed, and operating speed. Now we have target speed. I read about it. Some people say the good working definition of the target speed is design operating speed. I don't know if you agree with that working definition. And the purpose is to try to align the design, the process speed, and the operating speed all together as a same target speed or target speed value. But and you also mentioned that the purpose of target speed is not just for the land repurposes project, but also to be incorporated into the initial design stages. So, so I just wonder, during the initial design stage, should we just consider the target speed instead of the design speed, and then narrow the laneways down to, say, from 12 ideal laneways down to 11 or 10, depends on the context of the design environment, or should we still follow the same design procedures that for the highway design process, and then proceed with that, and then wait until we got some kind of speed measurement later on, and then also the feedback from the road users, and then proceed with the second stage of target speed refinement. And the other question I have is target speed enforceable? I'm talk about this strictly in the context of speed management on highway. Maybe we do not see the speed control or the speed advisory control on freeway, on highway here in the state of Florida, but maybe some other state has it implemented, and the speed advisory control is been very popular in the Europe. So this comment would be, if the target speed, say on the curvature of the freeway, we continues observing the high crashes occurrences, and we try to manage the speed to reduce the crash propensity. In that concept, I really wish that the FDOT can take that into consideration. First of all, the speed advisory control on the freeway, because that is really, really helpful to minimize so-called shock wave. And especially on the curvature, if you can reduce the speed on the curvature in advance. So to minimize the risk of the so-called shock wave, that can prevent, I can show you that can prevent a lot of the crashes occurrences. That's just my comments. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, Margie, do we have any other comments?
I don't see any other hands raised, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have no cards raised in house.
I have one quick question.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, hi, Patrick Bartholomew, Village of Wellington, on behalf of Mike Odell. Quick question for our FDOT guys. So design speed is usually my understanding. The design speed is usually going to be a little bit more than the posted speed limit. My question is, the target speed that we're talking about, is that what we're aiming for the speed limit to end up being, or is that going to be different than the speed limit?
If we do it right, if we can get all the pieces lined up the way that we want to line them up, at the end of the day, the target speed will be equal to the design speed, will be equal to the speed limit. And the way that has to work is we start by figuring out the target speed we'd like to reach, and then we go through that whole complex chart I showed you to figure out, well, what can we actually build on the thing based on our constraints and how much money we have, and then we set a target speed and a design speed that will be equal to each other at the end of that process. So we can get those two lined up pretty easily. So to set the speed limit, then we would build the project, and then you come back and you do a speed study, and there's a speed zoning manual that tells you how to do that speed study, and then you'll set the speed limit. Now, if we've designed it right and got all the other pieces lined up correctly, it should match. It should match. Maybe we didn't. Maybe there's some things we didn't consider. Maybe we didn't go far enough with the tools that we had available to us. Maybe we didn't have enough tools to do all the things we wanted to do, and so it wasn't able to match. In that case, there could be a mismatch there. But normally, we want to have all those things lined up together. It's really best practice to keep the speed limit less than the design speed. If you go above the design speed, there's a bunch of variations that have to be done, and that causes a whole other level of complexity. So between all those things, we are hoping and expecting that at the end of the day, that the speed limit will be the same as the design speed, will be the same as the target speed. And,
with the hope or goal that 85% of the drivers will actually go at or below the speed limit, and the target speed and the design speed, is that the goal?
That's the goal, is that if we're looking for that 85th percentile, we can get it down to there. Now, as Scott mentioned, the 85th percentile has been mentioned a lot of times. A lot of people think it's the only way to set a speed limit. It's not. There are some other ways that you can set speed limits. It's just the one that we're most used to using and most comfortable with. And there's a lot of good things you need to know about that 85th percentile, but it's not the be all and end all. And of course, enforcement has a part to play in it. Education has a part to play in it. So all that comes into play. And thank you for supporting us, because this is something that the department has not attempted to do before. When we rolled out these context classifications in 2018, our lowest speed used to be 45. When we came in and decided to start building 25 and 30 mile an hour roads, we didn't have anything to tell our folks how to do that. And so now we're developing those things, and it's only been a few years since then. So we'll get better at it as we go. But at the end of the day, yes, we want all those speeds to be the same. And if we can, polish our craft and get good at doing that, which I think we will, and you've got some good folks who've had experience doing that in District 4, and I think that's what you'll see at the end of the day. Scott, do you want to add anything to that?
No, the only thought I had when the question was being posed was, it was very common in the past to have the design speed 5, sometimes even 10 miles an hour above the posted speed. But Dwayne also mentioned enforcement. What has a lot more control over how fast people drive is how fast they feel comfortable on that road. The reason you feel comfortable going 80 on the turnpike is because there's wide lanes and wide shoulders, and there's no trees and there's no driveways. There's not that many median crossovers. So the design speed affects what we can actually build, where trees can be, the width of the median. So I wouldn't want to design something too much faster than what we're trying to get people to drive at, because that's what will have a bigger influence. We just can't have a police officer out there every day writing tickets. So I think we may try not to. Dwayne said we can't have the posted speed higher than design speed. That's true. But I don't think we want the design speed much higher than the posted speed either in these areas we're trying to reduce speeds in.
Right. But ultimately, you can't or you shouldn't design the road to only be able to handle people that are going to drive the speed limit, correct?
Well, if the speed limit is what we want them to be driving, yes, that's what the target speed's for. It's kind of a speed that we set out there. So let's say we decided that a road needs to operate at 30 miles an hour. That's our desired operating speed. That is our target speed. Then Scott's going to design that road for 30 miles an hour. And because that's the design speed, he now has access to a whole range of tools that he could use to try to get that speed down to there. And at the end of the day, if we've done our job right, when the traffic engineers come out and do their speed study, by cracking it should be 30 miles an hour is how fast they're driving, if we've done it right. Now, what if it's not? What if they're too high? Then we may have an option to go back and do some more things. Are there more things we could do to try to get us to that point? But we really want to have them, matching each other.
But and the other half of that, Dwayne, is you keep using 30. I'm going to use 35 as an example. 30 is pretty slow for our state roads in this area. Our roads will be designed safely. We recognize there are speeders, and if someone's driving 45, we believe the road we design will be safe. Now, if it's pouring rain and they're drunk and it's 3 a.m. and speeding, I can't guarantee their safety, but we do not intend to build anything unsafe, recognizing not everyone drives the speed limit.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, Margie, is that everyone?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to pedestrian and bicycle quarterly fatal crash analysis. I'd like to invite Andrew, TPA Deputy Director of Program Development, to present this item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. This is just going to be our first showcase of the pedestrian and bicycle quarterly fatal crash analysis. So before we came to you a few months ago with just the sample of what that would look like. And then we made a few changes to that form. And then now we're presenting the first analysis from January 2021 to June 2021. It's the first half of 2021. So why quarterly reviews of pedestrian and bicycle fatalities? And really, this is something that spurred a discussion with the TPA board, and we have direction to implement these. This was just presented to you all in the Vision Zero action plan as one of those action items. And why we wanted to focus on this one particularly is because it is a disproportionate representation of crashes. So 27% of total fatalities are pedestrian bicycle related. Although they don't make up that much of the total travelers and roadway users and transportation users on our network. And ultimately, the most important part of why we want to do this is really to promote discussion and a sense of urgency when it comes to these fatal crashes. You're not going to see an in-depth review when you go through these forms. There isn't much time to do a full analysis of all these fatal crashes as they occur, right? So we're presenting to you in a pretty timely fashion of the first half of this year. So it would take a lot more time to go in-depth discussion or in-depth review of these crashes, which we would potentially do in the future here to assess these countermeasures in more detail. But really, this is about promoting discussion and create that sense of urgency. And hopefully it does reveal trends and high impact countermeasures that, again, we can move forward with and do a more in-depth analysis. So for the summary of January 1 to June 30th, with these crashes, we had around 33 bicycle and pedestrian crashes, 4 being fatal bicycle crashes, and then 29 fatal pedestrian crashes. You can see those on the right side of the map. It was also available in your packet. Many of these are clustering around arterials with abundant pedestrian activity. As you can see closer to Okeechobee, and as Alex mentioned earlier with Military Trail there. Some other notes for this first half is 3 occurred on January 1st after midnight. So of the 33 total, we had 3 occurred just within a few hours after midnight on January 1st for New Year's. So a lot of these occurring during these big events. We also had a few numbers come in for July that we are not showing here, but also happening around July 4th. So those tend to be areas or days of the year that have higher fatalities overall. And then also what we noticed in these reports is 25 occurred at dark. And in those that occurred at dark, 16 locations were identified as lighted. But I wanted to make a note here, when our consultants were looking through these and noting some countermeasures, they wanted to point out that even though these are occurring at dark lit locations, it may not really give you a good sense of what the lighting conditions are out there for pedestrians. So it might not be adequate pedestrian lighting for those areas. So that's something that we would have to dive into more deeply when we go out there and do field reviews and have more refined countermeasures for these crashes. And then our next steps for these, I'm not going to go into them in detail, but if you have any questions, I'd like to answer them for you, incorporate into the next round of these. But our next steps are to incorporate feedback from committees and other stakeholders we've sent these to. We sent them to the cities located within those crashes. We'd like to refine this review process to make it more seamless for our staff, our consultants, and also the ones to review it. And then to continue to build and refine countermeasures. You'll see a lot of these countermeasures that are fairly high level in the backup, and we'll be working with our consultants and refining those countermeasures over time as we get better at this process. And then we'd like to work with stakeholders moving forward to implement some of these refined countermeasures where it is appropriate. And that's all I have for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Staff, are there any public comments on this item?
No, Madam Chair.
Do you have any hands raised for committee members?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, I don't see any cards in-house, so we'll move on to the next item. Thank you very much. The next is the Strategic Intermodal System Policy Plan Update. I'd like to invite Christine Fasiska, FDOT Transportation Planning Manager, to present this item.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm Christine Fasiska. I'm the Transportation Planning Manager for FDOT in District 4, and I'm excited to be here today. And I'm thankful for the opportunity. I'd like to share with you the update to the SIS policy plan. So my goal today is to inform you about the purpose of the plan, why it matters, highlight the plan elements and emphasis areas, discuss the proposed focus areas, but most importantly, I'd like to get your input and initial feedback. So the Strategic Intermodal System, or the SIS, is a statewide network of high priority transportation facilities, including the state's largest and most significant airports, spaceports, public seaports, freight rail terminals, passenger rail and intercity bus terminals, rail corridors, waterways, and highways. Florida established the SIS in 2003 for many reasons, all of which are still relevant today. Primary reason was to help meet growing demand for moving people and freight on all modes as our population and economy continue to expand. The SIS was envisioned to support Florida's economic competitiveness for connecting our regions to markets within our nation and worldwide. Many industries require access to multiple modes of transportation, providing seamless flows of both people and goods. In addition, the SIS was intended to support the state's community planning goals by focusing transportation investments on existing transportation hubs or corridors, so we can maximize the use of the existing system. Finally, the SIS was intended to focus our essential state resources on those transportation facilities most critical to Florida's economy and quality of life. So Florida statute requires the department to update the SIS policy plan at least once every 5 years, and it follows the update of the Florida Transportation Plan. The policy is developed to reviewing the most recent FTP goals and objectives to ensure the SIS policy plan is consistent with the FTP. In addition, the process considers current trends and conditions, including applicable performance measures, to ensure the plan addresses key issues and opportunities for the SIS. The process requires collaboration and input gathered through various partner and public outreach efforts, such as partner briefings, social media outreach, virtual outreach, and surveys. The 35-member steering committee that guided the update of the FTP in 2020 is assisting with the update of the SIS policy plan this year. A public comment period will accompany the draft final plan. And following the public comment period and final management approval, the plan will be adopted. And I'll show you the schedule as we move through the presentation. The SIS is made up of 2 basic components: SIS facilities, which meet high levels of people and goods movement, generally supporting major flows of interregional, interstate, and international trips, and strategic growth facilities, which are smaller in nature and generally are designated to support niche markets, underserved geographic areas, or other unique economic opportunities. The SIS includes 3 types of facilities: hubs, such as airports, seaports, and other types of terminals; corridors, such as highways, rail lines, and waterways; and connectors, which link the hubs and corridors or hubs to other hubs, and military access facilities to corridors. Statewide, the SIS includes a variety of facilities. We have 18 commercial service airports and 3 general aviation reliever airports, 2 spaceports, 12 public seaports, 7 freight rail terminals, and 1 intermodal logistics center, 15 interregional passenger terminals, either rail or bus, 2 urban fixed guideway transit corridors, and those include the Tri-Rail and Sunrail. We have 9 military access facilities, nearly 2,200 miles of rail corridors, and nearly 900 miles of waterway corridors, more than 4,400 miles of highway corridors. And this slide is showing the facilities that are currently designated as part of the SIS, specifically in District 4. Although the outline of the plan has evolved over the years, the SIS policy document generally addresses and includes the following topics. It defines objectives for how we plan and manage the SIS, consistent with the broader goals of the FTP. It outlines focus areas for the SIS that are to be addressed over the next 5 years as part of the plan update. It sets forth policy and strategies directed towards these objectives and focus areas. And lastly, it sets forth implementation guidance on how to carry the plan forward. So here are the objectives in the current 2016 SIS policy plan. And these objectives still correlate to the current FTP goals related to mobility, transportation choices, and economic competitiveness, and represent the longstanding framework of the SIS in its original intent. So the 2022 SIS policy plan will look at these 5 focus areas: safety, How does the SIS, as a key element of the state's transportation system, contribute to our vision of eliminating fatalities and serious injuries in Florida's transportation system? Resilience. How can we reduce vulnerabilities of SIS infrastructure to risks including extreme weather, sea level rise, coastal and inland flooding, wildfires, and extreme heat? Technology and innovation. How can we prepare the SIS for emerging technologies such as automated, connected, and electric and shared vehicles? Urban mobility and connectivity. How do we address the impact of congestion in both major and developing urban areas on the efficiency and reliability of the SIS for interregional travel, especially in areas where there are limited options for adding capacity to the SIS corridors or limited modal alternatives to SIS highways? And then finally, rural mobility and connectivity. How can the SIS support rural revitalization and economic development and facilitate emergency evacuation and response while supporting environmental stewardship goals and community visions? So within those 5 focus areas, the SIS policy plan will identify 3 sets of SIS-related policies. The designation policies is where it will be asked what types of facilities are of statewide significance and should be part of the SIS, and what criteria should be used to designate these facilities. And then there's the needs and prioritization policies. This is where we identify what types of investments should be found through the SIS program and what factors should be used to set priorities. And then finally, the planning and collaboration policies, where we ask how should we work with MPOs, local governments, modal and other partners to accomplish the SIS objectives. So today I'll only focus on one of the 4 focus areas, the urban mobility and connectivity. And this is where we'd like to gather some input from you. So the key issue here is the impact of congestion on the efficiency and reliability of the SIS and the ability of the SIS to play its role in supporting interregional travel. More than 86% of all delay on the SIS is focused in the 7 largest MPOs. And of those 7 largest MPOs, Palm Beach TPA and Broward MPO are 2 of the 7, and they're, of course, in District 4. Total delay on the SIS highways is the 7 largest MPOs is higher than it was 5 years ago. Congestion can impede the flow of interregional trips, particularly in urban areas where there are limited options for adding capacity to SIS corridors and few modal alternatives, either for through trips or for local and regional trips that currently use the SIS. Because this is a complex issue, and as we think about the solutions, we need to keep in mind that the statutory purpose of the SIS is to support statewide and interregional travel. We also need to remember that current statutes, policies, and work program instructions generally limit the use of SIS funds to those facilities designated as part of the SIS. So with that, some potential policy changes being considered to better address SIS mobility and connectivity in urban areas. They include some changes to the designation policies. There's currently no standard definition of interregional since the economic regions originally used were sunsetted a few years ago. The current SIS designation considers connections between urbanized areas, and we need to assess changes as the urbanized areas and MPO boundaries are adjusted over the next few years. We also can explore whether better real-time and location-based data can help better identify the facilities that actually carry significant interregional movement of people and freight, not just those that cross boundaries. And under the needs and prioritization policies, considering to redefine capacity projects to include mobility and reliability improvements, such as the use of TSM&O strategies. We could also balance interregional with intra-regional, which is regional versus the local needs, recognizing that in urban areas, the SIS facilities often play dual roles So improving mobility for both purposes is key. And this might include projects to create express or through lanes, create bypasses or other alternatives to bottlenecks, supporting truck parking or other freight accommodations. This also might include providing more options for travel within and between Florida's urban areas. We could consider providing flexibility for use of SIS funds to support emerging mobility solutions. For example, first or last mile solutions for SIS hubs. Some other considerations is to provide flexibility for use of SIS funds off system when that is considered the best option to improve performance of the SIS. For example, if a SIS corridor is heavily congested and there are no viable options to add capacity to that corridor, the use of SIS funds to improve a parallel arterial or transit corridor, if that improvement will pull local trips off the SIS and preserve capacity for long distance travel. And then under the planning and collaboration policies, we could strengthen coordination with MPOs and local governments on solutions to support end-to-end trips. We could also look at strengthening coordination on multimodal corridor plans that would provide integrated solutions for addressing both SIS and off-SIS facilities and reflect compatible land uses. So for example, we have the I-95 Corridor Mobility Planning Project in Southeast Florida. Then we could also improve coordination of SIS investments and local land use decisions. So this is your opportunity to provide your initial thoughts on the draft. And what we'd like to hear today is, do you think we're on the right track? What are we missing? And we'd like to get your suggestions and concerns. And we value your input, and we'll be collecting your feedback today. And if you don't have an opportunity or you haven't had a chance to gather your thoughts today, we also have an opportunity for online input. So today we only focused on one of the 5 focus areas, but there'll be other opportunities to provide more feedback on this particular focus area or the other 4 focus areas, and to get public comment. So we'll soon be launching a SIS virtual room where you can learn more about the other focus areas and where you can provide input at any time of day. The team is finalizing those logistics, and we expect that virtual room to be launched either today or later this week. So that's what we're hearing from the team. And as soon as we get that information, we'll be sure to share that with y'all. So just to give you the update on the schedule, the targeted outreach is happening now through October. And also the draft SIS policy plan is being updated through November of this year. So following our outreach efforts, the draft recommendations will be incorporated into the plan based on the input that we receive. And the information will be reviewed with the FTP and SIS Implementation Committee and FDOT management. And then in mid-December, the draft SIS policy plan will be posted for public comment. And the final plan is anticipated to be adopted by early 2022. So I'd like to hear your thoughts. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them. Or you can also contact Ron Kariva. Ron is the District 4 SIS coordinator, and you can contact him via email or by phone. And his contact information was shown on the presentation. And thank you again for the opportunity to present today.
Thank you. Margie, are there any public comments on this item?
I'm sorry, I forgot to unmute. No, Madam Chair.
Okay. Do you have any hands raised from committee members?
I do not.
Okay, we don't have anything in-house, but when you send us the link, hopefully you'll get more comments then.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next are administrative items. Items 4A and B are informational items only. There will be no staff presentation unless requested by a committee member. Staff, are there any public comments on these items, A, B, or C?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. Our next TAC meeting is scheduled for October 6th, 2021. At this time, our committee meeting is adjourned. Thank you.